Hey, and welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that shot of sunrise over the Outer Banks. So as it turns out, the tailstock definitely the most difficult component to get sorted out. Just using a long Allen wrench and a pry bar here to pop the oiler out of the center of that board. If you remember all the way back in part 1, I said that the tailstock was the only component that was seized, and so I had to soak it in PB for probably a week, and it still wouldn't budge. So I spent a lot of time with a brass drift and a mallet, and I didn't record any of it because it was just so time consuming, and I didn't want you guys calling 1-800-TAILSTOCK on me. So after cleaning the base of the tailstock up, I realized that there was a small gap here where the centering adjustment is at. And so those surfaces don't actually touch, and there's no reason to clean that by hand after I'd already done the bottom. I realized that on the top, I could just put that in the blaster. I thought about buying a brake cylinder hone to clean out the bore of the tailstock, but in the end I decided that I didn't want to take a chance on messing up the tolerance, and so I cleaned it by hand just like I do most things. And the best thing to use was actually the ram for the tailstock because it fits perfectly. There's a cavity on the back third of the tailstock housing that's not machined. It's just a hollow empty space. So as I'm cleaning this out, all the grunge is going off into that cavity, and it makes it a lot easier to get it clean. It did take a while, and if you are not familiar, don't stick your finger in a taper unless you know it's going to come back out. Mine just happens to fit perfectly and will not get stuck in an MT3. And as you can see, after some time, I go from completely seized to it goes all the way in and out, and we'll do a 360. The critical areas here are the flat surface and these two ledges here where it engages the base, and the rusty parts can be blasted. It appears that the closest ledge there is damaged, but I think that's where Rockwell actually trued up the tailstock and made it square, probably using some kind of fixture. I'm just using masking tape to protect the surfaces that I don't want to blast, but if you're really concerned about it, you may want to use aluminized tape. It can be quite pricey, but it will do a better job of protecting, especially if you're using something that's a little more abrasive than what I'm using. And the only other date that I've found on the entire machine besides the data plate is on the tailstock handle, which is kind of cool. They actually took the time to put the date down to the day. As you can see, I spent a lot of time die grinding, and I did have to make a couple of trips back and forth between the buffer and the die grinder. As you buff, you can see better what's going on with the part, and so I had to go back and grind off a few flat spots and round those areas over, and then come back to the buffer, and had to do that a few times. And here I'm buffing the witness marks. I really didn't want to use the wire wheel on the ram, but I really didn't have a choice, as there was about a ½ inch or so that was left sticking out in the weather. It was really difficult to remove. I had already done some buffing on this part, and usually rust will come off with buffing, but not with this. The live center is an Inco, and much to my surprise, the bearing appears to be okay. There's no detectable play in it, so I'm just going to go with it for now, although I suspect that its new life may be short-lived. All ready to go back together. And since I don't have the tailstock wrench, I'm just going to use a flare nut wrench that is collecting dust in my toolbox. The witness marks are dead on, and I just had to adjust it once. There's a brass grub for adjusting the height of the stud so that you can set the tailstock handle to the right height or position. And the key here is a little bit of a trick. It's got a 1/16 roll pin, and the hole is about halfway down the bore, so it's a little difficult to install. appears the ram taper is in good shape, and the screw ejects the live center as it should. If you get a chance, go check out Matthew C. Burke, link in the description. He's a wood carver, and he does some really awesome, intricate work. It's very artistic. Thanks for watching.